Hi, welcome back to the Hydroponics Daily. Today we're going to talk about another supervillain of hydroponics, and that is thrips. Interestingly, thrips is the plural and the singular, so it's got an S on regardless. But I'll forgive you for saying this, just saying thrip, because I do all the time. I've recently discovered that I cannot draw a thrip, or thrips, because they are awful and they don't look anything like a thrip if you're watching this on social media. If you're on the podcast, I'll put a picture of thrips on the logo for this particular episode. The problem with thrips is they're quite difficult to diagnose, even though the insect is there on your crop, and that's because they are transparent when they're young, and they absorb the colour of the crop. So they're often like a transparent white, then to a yellow, and then eventually they might go black, or they might go green, and they might stay yellow. Depends on the species and the plant they're on. The way you normally find out you've got thrips is that you have this silvery mottling, I think that's the word, on the upper surface of the leaf, as opposed to spider mites, where you get the webs and the arachnids on the underside of the leaf. This is an unusual one in the insects attack the upper surface. Even aphids normally go for the underside, and they leave this silvery mottling effect, and everyone gets really scared because they know thrips are potentially devastating. They can ruin your crop, and they can survive in the grow room even when you've disinfected everything out. There are lots of species of thrips. There are hundreds, thousands of species of thrips, but they all look very similar, and they all attack lots of different plants, most of them. They're polyphagous, they eat lots of plants. There are some that are monophagous, that eat one particular type of plant. There are even thrips that eat thrips, carnivorous thrips. But the most ones we're normally looking at are I think it's the western flower thrip, the onion thrip, the tobacco thrip. They're the three main species, and they all look very similar. They're a problem because they lay their eggs in the plant leaf. So when you put on a spray, that's not going to touch the egg. They emerge like Alien, the film Alien, and start devouring your plants. And they go through a very fast life cycle. And then as a nymph, a wingless nymph, then they pupate. They fall to the ground as a pupa. They might burrow down into the soil a bit first, but they turn into a pupa. And then they emerge as a winged adult. And then they don't fly very much. Their other name is thunderflies, and they tend to fly only in certain weather conditions, and they're really rubbish at flying as well, and very inefficient. And so they fly when there's thunder, when there's a storm. They mate, and then they get back down onto the plants. This life cycle, the reason I'm talking about this life cycle is because it's important for controlling them. Because they pupate and they land on the ground and the soil, if you just spray the leaves once and hope you're going to control thrips, you're not, because you're not going to get the eggs that are inside the leaf, and you're not going to get the pupa that are on the surface of the soil or on the ground in your grow room. We'll talk about that more later or tomorrow. So eggs in the leaf, pupa on the ground, adults and nymphs on your plants eating them and devastating the crop, leaving it unsightly and reducing your yield dramatically. Okay, so that's thrips. More on thrips tomorrow, and we'll talk about how to control these nasty little buggers.